I'll share the text document today, whatever the one I'm updating on daily basis. So basically, based on module, I'm going to share that periodically. I'll definitely share this. So any difficulties with this? When you create and when you give administrator access, is he able to access billing dashboard? No. No. Okay. So when coming to task 2, so then I asked a user to create with S3 read only and administrator access and S3 full access and try to create an S3 bucket. Success, it will. And what are the policies allowing him to perform that? Administrator and S3 full access, both. We have either of the one also, he can perform the task. So, but with only S3 read only, he cannot perform that. So when coming to task 3, so here I asked you to create a policy where it can any S3, where it can any S3. So if you associate that policy, can he create a bucket now? No. So when he is trying to create a bucket, I'm pointing to same user. I'm associating to same user. So he cannot create. Why? Because Denny will always have highest priority. So he cannot. So I asked you to understand the same by using policy simulator. So just spend a couple of minutes and associate. You can create multiple policies and you can associate at multiple levels also. Group level, user level, individual resource level. Anywhere, if you find Denny, simply Denny is going to have highest priority. Okay. So then I asked you to create an administrator policy. And I am user with administrator policy. Let's take this task 1 user only. And I asked you to give billing dashboard access. Are you able to? No? By default, no. He will not get access. But if you want to give access, what modifications you need to perform?
You need to enable an option in my account.
Okay. Okay. So generally, you need to log in as a root user, and there you have an option. If provide billing access to an IAM user. Even here, along with this administrator access, if you observe, you can even find billing access also. If you explicitly associate billing access along with administrator access, still he cannot access. Why? Because by defaultly, IAM users will not get any access on billing dashboards. So one option is going to be disabled by default. You need to enable option like provide billing access to all IAM users. You must enable first step. Second step, associate required policy. If you are giving administrator access, yes, he can. But let's assume your accounting department is there and they required access only on billing dashboard. They really don't require access on EC2, S3 or any other services or resources. So in that case, create an IAM user for billing department or accounting department. Associate only that policy, billing policy. Then they can access billing. They can perform the payments. They can change credit card or debit card, or they can download invoices. Okay, but again, they cannot close AWS account. That is not related to billing. Okay, so great to see many guys did this. And billing alarm. So even after creating your AWS account, you may get a call from AWS also. You will get a call from AWS and they will, as a first step, they will suggest you to create a billing alarm. They will ask you, okay, what is the purpose you are creating this account? So they may ask you where exactly you are getting trained also. They will. So it's not an IVR. A executive will call you. So you can just answer all those questions and by end of that call, they will definitely suggest you to create a billing alarm. So spend some time and create a billing alarm. Okay. So again, we have a couple of topics pending here. CLI and roles. Definitely we will discuss that. We're not going to skip. We are going to discuss in our coming sessions. Okay. So now I'm going to start with S3. I can start with EC2. So, but you know, first couple of weeks, like you know these things, right? They may send you to main office, and somebody may join, and also that's why. So I really don't want anyone to miss EC2. So we're going to start with S3. So it is a 4-day session. It is a 4-day session. So we will start with S3 now. So S3, it stands for Simple Storage Service. Again, one quick thing, guys, classroom mainly. So if you miss any session on IAM, you really no need to worry. This is a completely a new module, storage module. So keep that aside. If you miss something, you can continue with S3. Okay. So S3 stands for Simple Storage Service. So basically, this S3 is an object-based storage. A blob, you know blob? So basically, it's an object-based storage. So generally, we are going to have different type of storages: object-based, block-based, and storage over the network or network file systems. So object-based means it is designed to store flat files. It is designed to store all the flat files. An important thing is we cannot install any OS or applications here. Where you can install that OS or applications, you can pick any of this one. So mainly we will use block-based storage. Block-based storage, here we are going to simple, you purchase a brand new laptop and you really don't have any operating system. Okay, so can you connect something or storage or pen drive, or can you start storing all the files there? You have 1 TB hard disk drive there. Physically it is present. Can you store something there? No, we cannot. Why? Because it needs an operating system, and those are raw blocks. Those are empty blocks or raw blocks. So those raw blocks can take operating system only. So we can install operating system. On top of that, you can start storing all the files. So this block based, like we have services like EBS and Instant Store. EBS or Instant Store, we can use it as a block based. We will discuss about these in our EC2. When coming to network file system, we have services like EFS or FSX or LUST file system. You can use this file system. So basically the file system will be resides in over a network. You can mount it, how many systems you want, how many servers you want, you can mount it. It looks like a local drive, but what are the data you are going to store there? It is going to store over the network. When coming to S3, it is a clearly object-based storage. An important thing is we cannot install OS here. We cannot install any operating system in S3 platform. Then what we can do? We can store all flat files. Flat files means like a MP3, MP4, JPEG, PNG. So you can take .pdfs. These all are we can store into S3 platform. This is in simple terms Amazon's version of Google Drive. How we use Google Drive. But here we have a lot of advanced options. We will discuss those. So you cannot install any operating system or any application here, but you can store all the raw data or flat files you can make this storage or anything available to your servers. You can make all these available to your servers. You can mount it as a local drive also. You can mount to your Windows machine also, Linux machine also. We have many third-party tools, or directly you can configure a user, you can access all the data. Okay, so but you cannot install anything here. That is the important thing. And there is unlimited storage available. And here, no pre-provisioning required. Pre-provisioning means if you are taking like a EBS, while launching server itself, okay, how much hard disk drive you require? You want 30 GB or 40 GB, 50 GB? So you need to specify. But here, you really no need to specify that. Create a bucket, store all your data inside that bucket. You can store unlimited data. So there is no particular limit. So by end of the month, how much data you have stored, how many requests happen on that data, and how much data transferred. Based on these three things, you are going to get charged. And we will get this S3 under free tier limitation. So you really no need to worry about provisioning the capacities whenever you are working with S3. And by defaultly, we have a soft limit for creating a bucket. Bucket is simple. It is nothing but a folder or directory with a unique namespace. And we have some naming limitations. So bucket is nothing but a folder or directory with a unique namespace. That means whatever the name you are giving to that bucket, it must be unique. It must be unique. And bucket naming limitations. Whenever you are creating a bucket, you must follow this. Name minimum 3 characters. Maximum is 63 characters length. It supports. And no uppercase letters. We will not accept any uppercase letter. And no special characters. It accept hyphens, I believe, but not any like special characters. And it should not start with dot, should not end with dot, and no adjacent double dots. You can give single dot. That means if you are giving Avinash as a bucket name, that is not a valid one. Why? Because the first letter is a capital one. It can start with number or alphabet, but not with capital letter. Or if you are trying to create a bucket with dot, it will not accept. If you are creating a bucket with dotted ending, it will not accept. But you can give. It is a valid bucket name. But if you are trying to give 2 dots, it will not again. Simple. You know DNS naming standards? DNS naming standards. So like domains. Have you ever seen a domain with uppercase letters or with the special characters? Hyphen and dot is applicable, but any other special characters, no. And have you ever seen a domain name starts with dot or end with dot and 2 double dots? No adjacent dots. So basically this bucket must comply with DNS naming standards. In simple, okay, and bucket name should not resemble IP address format. It should not resemble IP address format. That means you cannot create a bucket like a 192.168.0.0 or so like a 10.10.0.0. You cannot create a bucket in this format. Why? Because S3 have a feature called static website hosting. So just for that feature, it will not allow. So whenever you're enabling that feature, backend automatically we are going to get a public IP address for that bucket. So that is why it will not allow us to create a bucket with this IP address formats. Okay, and this S3 is a global. S3 is a global service, does not require region selection whenever you are working on S3. But whenever you are creating an S3 bucket, it will ask you in what region you want to create. The real difference between these two is whatever the bucket you are creating in whatever the region, that bucket can be accessible across all regions. That is a global. And whenever you are creating a bucket, you must specify a region. Physically, the bucket will exist in that region's availability zones. And based on the selected storage class, the data replication will happen over backend. Okay, so but whenever we are creating a bucket, we need to choose a region. And when coming to minimum object size and maximum object size, minimum, it depends on the storage class. We will discuss what exactly storage class here in today's session only. The maximum object it support is one single object. The maximum object size is 5 TB. You cannot upload a file which has size more than 5 TB. See, there is unlimited storage. That means if your object is like a 4.9 TB, yes, you can upload. You can upload 10, 20, hundreds of 4.9 TB files also. But one individual object I am talking about. So maximum object size is maximum object size S3 supports is 5 TB. Minimum it's 0 bytes, and for storage, some storage classes it is going to 128 KB. I'll share one chart. Again, as I mentioned, I'm going to share this document. Please don't, you really don't need to maintain any running notes, guys. Concentrate here, please. Okay. I'll share this. Okay. So that's those are the naming policies and basic introduction to S3 platform. Okay. So we have a lot of features like versioning. We have cross region replication or same region replication. Whatever the data you have in bucket 1, it replicates to another region. And if accidentally you delete an object, if you enable versioning, you can get that one also. And static web hosting. You can use this S3 to host a static website, and we have object lock. Legally you can hold that, and you can secure all your data by using ACLs as well as bucket policies. And we have public access settings also. We have public access settings also, and along with that, like we have options like events. When something happen on your S3 bucket, immediately you can get a notification. And we have lifecycle management roles. You can transfer object from one storage class to another storage class, and we can generate inventory report weekly or daily, and you can observe. We can get metrics, visual graphs, how many objects we have, how much data we have, how many read operations happening, how many write operations happening. We will go in detail about all these features in our coming 3 sessions or 4 sessions. And if you have large set of data, how you can perform import or export, we're going to discuss that one also. So we'll go with the particular pattern. So now let's log in. Let's quickly create a bucket. Let's upload an object there. Okay. So now As I mentioned, I'm going to use IAM user only, not a root user, for all our coming sessions. So I'll strongly recommend you also follow the same mechanism. Okay, so sign into a different account. And here, if we give account ID or account alias, we are going to log in as a IAM user. If you are giving entire email, you are going to log in as a root user. So my account alias name is Avisve1. That is why I have given that. Click on enter. And here IAM username and the password. All right, this user have valid permissions and I'm able to log in, and I'll navigate to S3 platform now. Okay, so here is a S3, or you can just go here, you can search for S3, or you can expand this all services under storage. The first option is S3. So just go here, and I pin this. You can just go here, you can drag and drop, and you can pin that. So I'm navigating to S3. So I already have some buckets. I have these buckets for a specific purpose. For example, for every batch, I create a bucket and I'll share all the nodes. For example, 64th batch, I shared this. For 65th batch, I shared that. So I told you, right, I'm going to share some data and all notepads and all. I'm going to share like this. And I'm going to share exam documents, easy to zip, and test 1, test 2. We're going to have a couple of tests also. So now I'm going to create a bucket. So the previous one is 65. So I'm going to create a bucket with Avinash 66. So basically this is my 66th batch with Naresh IT. So I'm trying to create a bucket name with capital letters. So there you can see it's saying. Okay. So let's give this. And in what region you want to create? You can pick any, and some are disabled. You can just log in as a root user, you can enable that, or you can contact AWS. So then if you already have any bucket, you can copy all the settings, but let's assume this is your first bucket. So then again, don't go with this next and don't follow this wizard. We will discuss individual options first, then you can go with that option. So here is an option, create. When you click on create, so it is saying bucket name already existed. So I selected Mumbai, so it may saying like that. Let me pick Singapore, not allowing. In Singapore also it is showing the same. I told you bucket names must be unique across the globe. Must be a unique namespace across the globe. So if someone already taken a bucket name, you can't do anything. If you contact AWS also, they won't reveal. So that is why I have not deleted those buckets. Okay. So let me give batch 66, and I will create this bucket in Mumbai region. Why Mumbai? Latency is always matter. If you are selecting a region where physically it is somewhere else, or the geographical distance is more than your physical location and that S3 bucket, then you will get latency. Of course, we can reduce that latency by using an option called S3 transfer acceleration. We can simply enable one feature. Data is going to be cached all the locations, edge locations. We'll look into that one also. So I'm creating this in Mumbai region. Click on create. If that bucket is available, then it is going to create. All right, seems that bucket name is available and it got created. Okay, I'll create with Avinash 66. For batch 66, I'll continue with this. Okay, so one bucket is created and that is created in Mumbai. And if you observe under access, it is showing bucket and objects not public. Okay, fine, we'll see that. Now let's go inside that bucket. And this bucket is empty. Why? Because this is a brand new bucket. So here is an upload option. You can create a folder and you can upload inside that folder also. we call that as a prefix. We call that as a prefix. So prefix is always important while designing your structures. So generally, I'll tell you one use case. If you are dealing with any big data kind of applications like EMR or any Redshift, this S3 we are going to use for query in place also. So like any of the service like Athena or Redshift, if you have TBs and TBs data, you can simply run a query. How the query is going to run, so how it is going to filter the data, that is always depends on performance, always depends on naming standards you have set up. Naming standards. So simple. Now I'm going to upload one data and I'm going to download the same file. So uploading data is nothing but a put operation. Put is nothing but upload. Download is nothing but get. So how many simultaneous uploads you can perform and simultaneous downloads you can perform in S3 platform? Simple, it's read and write only. Read and write operations, put or get request or read and write operations. So basically per second, this is a default value. Per second, you can perform 5,500 requests per second or 5,500 read operations per second. Read requests. When coming to write, it is a 3,500 write requests per second. We can improve this read operations like anything. But how we can improve that? By designing specific naming prefix. By designing specific naming prefix, we can, for example, if you are creating 10 naming prefix, you can get the performance to 55,000 read requests per second. I'll show you one article where you can find more about this. So first thing, you can implement caging mechanisms. So in simple, if you ask me what exactly that naming and all, so let's assume you are designing a folder structure, 2019, then the year, so then the date. There you have log 1, you have log 2, log 3, log 3, log 4. Let's assume you are maintaining one naming format. And next day you got some more logs. Mainly if you are working as a solution architect, this is important, guys. For a fresher, you really don't need to worry about this. Okay. So now you are maintaining some naming format like this, one particular naming standard. Another one, you have a file like a logs. So there you have files like a log 1 with the following date, or like a date followed by. So you are not maintaining any specific naming prefixes. So here log 2, so then log 3, log 4, you are maintaining like this. Just observe. Simply you are putting everything into a folder. But here for every single day you are managing one folder. For every single day you are managing one folder. Now I need a log which I need a log 3 which happened on 14th November. So which one give quick results whenever you are running a query? The first one can easily give the result. Why? Because here we are not maintaining any format, so the query need to execute in all. But when coming to the first one, it is going to, okay, November 14th, it is going to verify the prefix first. So it is always good to maintain a unique prefix. Okay, so by using that unique prefix, you can query the data. So again, if you are creating a folder, that is going to call as one prefix only. So again, so if you are okay with this default performance, you really don't need to worry about naming prefixes. But if you are getting more than that request, yes, you need to redesign your naming policies. Okay. Now let's upload an object. So I have an object. Let's take this. Let's take this image, and I'm going to upload that here. So you can perform simple drag and drop. You will get that image. Okay. So here is the image. I perform drag and drop, and see if this option is not available. Make public. Now, as an uploaded user or as an IAM user, I want to open that object and I want to view within this browser. So here is an option, open. So click on open and I'm able to view this. Okay. And if I want to download, I can simply click on this, it is going to download. Why? Because this IAM user have valid read and write permissions. Then he is able to perform all these operations. If you want to download as, you can just click here and save link as. You can, while creating, you can rename this. So that is save as. So this copy path, basically it is going to copy this object path. So if you, this is what the bucket name, within that bucket you have an object. Okay, so now we have an object and this is the information, and this object URL is basically a publicly accessible URL. This is a, if you observe https://, so then bucket name dot s3 dot region code dot amazonaws.com / object name. This is a URL where you can share this object with everyone. This URL works across the globe. So, but again, if I go here, if I'm trying to access, it is saying access denied. It is saying access denied. The reason is, by defaultly, whatever the bucket you are creating it here, it is going to set all permissions to private. As a uploaded user, if you want to open and view, you can do that. But if you want to share it with public users, first you need to edit bucket public access settings first. By defaultly, block is going to enable. Block all public access settings is going to be enabled. So that is why this feature is not available. And even if you go to permissions, the last option is public access. This is ACLs. So if you try to select this everyone, if you gave read access, then if you click on save, still it is not able to take this. We should get like this, it should show yes, but it is not showing that yes. You can't grant public access because block public access settings are turned on this bucket. So first, if you want to make any object publicly accessible, you need to turn off that settings. Again, where you can find that settings. That settings you cannot find on object level. See, when you select this, you are getting properties, permissions, and select from. These are object properties. So go and select your bucket properties under permissions tab. The first option is block public access. Now block is on. That is why it is not allowing us to make that object publicly accessible. So first turn this off. So before turning this off, if you observe this for bash 66, see here, bucket and objects not public. But if you turn that off, you are going to get an option, buckets can be public. At that time, object level permissions are important. So let's go here, pick permissions, bucket policy, bucket public access settings, edit, uncheck this. I'm unchecking this, click on save, and here you need to write confirm to confirm that, then click on confirm. So if you don't disable this option at bucket level, you cannot make any object public. So bucket level is inheriting all the permissions. Of course, you cannot make that. So it won't allow you to. So there is nothing like inheritance. So but block all public access is turned off now. So now if I select this object, this feature is enabled. Again, permissions, I'm not getting any warning here. So you can edit public settings from here or else from direct this button. So I'm going to select make public. It is success. Now, if you go here, you give a refresh, there you can see I'm able to. Now this URL is working. Now, so far I'm updating this aws730.txt, right? So I'm going to upload that to my S3 bucket. Upload, here is an object. aws730.txt. I'm going to, by defaultly again, you cannot access this. I need to make it public. When I click on make public or when I went into these permissions, everyone, read objects, save. Now it is yes, go here, give a refresh and I'm able to get that object. So simply I'm going to share this URL with you guys. So wherever you are, you can simply give a click on that. This is going to load, give a right click, save as, and make sure you save it to your local machine. So you can open that, you can view whenever you want, wherever you want. Okay. So I'll share this URL. This is what the URL for our object. Again, this URL standard or format may not work always. So basically this is a virtual path. This is a virtual path. If you have dot in your bucket, this will not work. So let's pick that one also. So I have a bucket. Okay, Avinash.website is a bucket and same object I'm going to upload here. And I'm going to make it public and this is what the URL. Basically, this is a standard URL. This is a standard URL. See, the bucket name is coming here, not here. Don't worry about that. So you can always go with a standard URL, but you can access the same object with multiple options. I'll show you. So https://s3 then the region name or region code dot amazonaws.com/bucket name/object name. This is a standard path or URL. This is a virtual path. So this same object I can access without region code also. See, simple. I'm able to access now. The same thing I can access. The same thing, automatically redirecting, but that URL is working, right? Without the region code also, I'm able to access it, is automatically redirecting. So this URL also valid one, but this is also a virtual path. So you really no need to worry about these virtual paths. You always need to remember the standard path. It is standard for all the S3 buckets. See now, this bash 66.1, I'm accessing by using this URL. The same object I can access by using s3.ap south-1.amazonaws.com/ the bucket name is bash66 / the object name is aws730.txt. This is a standard URL. Let me try to access that. I'm able to access. So the standard works with all the S3 buckets, but virtual path, yes, we have some limitations. So that is why I strongly recommend you to remember this standard path syntax. https:// S3 is a service name. Then in what region the bucket is created, the region name. Then Amazon AWS.com is a common domain URL / your bucket name / your object name. Okay, so that is a, just remember that standard URL. Don't worry about that virtual paths and all. So it depends on the bucket you are selecting, it is going to generate automatically. So you can always follow the standard path. Okay, so now one object is uploaded and we have made it public. We will go in detail about permissions in our coming sessions. So now let's observe these object properties. I selected an object called linux.png. When I go to properties, the first property is storage class. So it is always important to understand the storage classes. Okay, you are going to get at least 2 questions from the storage class only. You are going to write certification exam. So mainly we have 6 storage classes. I'll pick this. But before this, what is the importance of the storage class? We'll discuss. I'm going to compare it with Google Drive. S3 and Google Drive. So let's assume you have you required 80 GB of the data. So is 80 GB plan available in Google Drive? No, you must go with 100 GB plan only. When coming to AWS, here no pre-provisioning is required. So you can start storing 80 GB, you are going to get charged for that 80 GB. Now, out of this 80 GB, are you going to access 80 GB data on daily basis? No, right? You're not going to access all 80 GB on daily basis. I'm just taking very small amount of data, but let's treat it as a 1 TB. Are you going to work on 1 TB on daily basis? No. You have some data. You're dealing with the data on daily basis. So let's assume 20 GB data you're accessing daily. You're accessing daily or frequently. So you have some data which you're accessing frequently. So in Google Drive, there is no plan like that. So you need to go with the 100 GB plan only. When coming to AWS, whatever the data you're accessing on daily basis, you can choose a storage class as S3 standard. This S3 standard is designed to store frequently accessed data. I'll give a real example which we implemented recently. Okay. So then again you have 20 more GB data. You need the data immediately. Whenever you required, you need to get the data immediately, but not working on daily basis. So in that case, infrequently only, forget about the typos please, but need data immediately whenever you required. Okay, so in this case, what you can do is you can pick S3 standard infrequently access or one zone infrequently access. This particular storage class is designed for this use case. This storage class is designed to store infrequently accessed data, but whenever you need your data immediately, you can access the data immediately. Okay, let's assume you have some more data that for some compliance purpose, for some records purpose, you really don't want to delete and you want to store for years and years. So in simple, you want to archive data for years and years, and again you have some time to restore durations. So in that case, you can use Glacier or Glacier Deep Archive. And you have some more data which you want to, the data is not important basically. It's a non-mission critical data or the data where you can easily producible. You can easily reproducible. In simple, the data is not important. So in that case, you can choose a storage class called RRS, reduced redundancy storage. Okay. If you are unsure about your access patterns, how frequently you are accessing, if you are unsure about your access patterns, then we have another storage class, that is intelligent tiering. Intelligent tier. Access pattern means how frequently you are accessing the data and all. How frequently you are accessing, whenever you are accessing, wherever you are accessing, that is what access patterns. Now, I'll give a very simple example, a real example. You know Continental Hospital. So we designed an application for Continental Hospital. So there, they have their own application, and whatever the in-house patients they have. So every doctor visit that patient with a tablet and that Apple tablet. So that tablet is going to contain an application, their hospital application. Whenever he went to rounds, he's going to update all the records within that application only. So another doctors can view immediately, even patient can view immediately, and lab, the lab, basically logins and everything is available there. So even patients also can view. So you have one in-house patient. So from morning to evening, minimum 5 to 10 members, 10 doctors will inspect that, right? So that means you are viewing that patient records, whatever the scans or whatever the X-rays he have, what are the reports he have, from morning to evening, 10 times, 20 times you are viewing, and that need to be available immediately, right? The data need to be available immediately. So you're accessing on frequently from morning to evening. So we have choose justice standard for all in-house patients. So once that patient is discharged, let's assume he discharged from critical illness. So as it is a critical illness, you are going to give an option. So whenever you want to visit hospital, you can visit immediately if you are facing any difficulty. Does he require any appointment? As it is a critical illness, no one will ask you for appointments, right? So, but when the patient comes, data need to be available immediately. Agree or not? So again, is he going to visit on daily basis? Or are you accessing that files on daily basis? He already discharged. If he comes, you are going to access that files. Again, he is not going to visit your hospital on daily basis. He may come or he may not come. But when he comes, you should not ask him to wait for some time to retrieve that patient records. So data need to be available immediately, and less frequently you are going to access that. Such type of data, you can pick standard infrequently access or one zone infrequently access. Okay, and Glacier or Deep Archive. So we have some outpatients, OPs. So if they want to visit your hospital again, they need to take a prior appointment. So for them also we are going to maintain records. So we are going to give a patient ID and all. So but if you want to visit your hospital, he need to take a prior appointment 24 hours before. So then we are going to initialize a data restoration. Okay, one appointment is scheduled against this ID. Then does this patient have any previous records with us? If yes, okay, initialize the restoration. If no, no need to worry about that. So you are getting 24 hours to restore the data. Again, is that patient comes on daily basis? Are you going to access a record on daily basis? No. But when appointment is scheduled, you can initialize the restoration. For longer durations, you can use this Glacier. Okay, and some unimportant data is there. You can simply store into RRS. Okay, based on storage class, we are going to get availability and durability values. If you are taking S3 standard, 99.99% availability and 99.99 total 11 nines durability. That means if you are storing some data with S3 standard format, the data loss chances are going to be one file may miss out of 100 million files over a year. That means if you are storing 100 million files with S3 standard for 1 year, one file may miss. That is what the durability is. Availability, data availability, the platform availability. So exactly based on that availability and durability you required, you can choose the storage classes. So you have some basic overview about these storage classes. So if I show you a couple of questions, can you answer those? Sure. Or any questions on the storage classes? So the real difference between the standard infrequently access and one zone infrequently access is pricing, and whenever you are storing data, in how many availability zones the data is spreading across, the backup options. Again, you cannot manage that backend mechanism. If you are taking S3 standard, your data will spread across minimum of 3 availability zones. So if one AZ goes down also, your data will be available. If 2 availability zone goes down, 2 data centers goes down also, no issues. You are going to have your data. When coming to infrequently access, here also our data is going to spread across 3 availability zones. But here only 1 availability zone. Here also 3, but here only 1. The price is less. And availability and durability values also changes. So let's observe this chart. This is a chart. Okay, I'm getting a couple of questions here. So what if any object deleted? We will talk about that. How is cost for different storage classes? So the cost, we'll talk about that. Okay. Now, the first one is S3 standard, designed for frequently accessed data. When you choose this S3 standard, the backend mechanism, again, if you ask me to show all the 3 copies, I cannot. Amazon will maintain that just to give you the required availability and durability. So data is going to spread across greater than or equal to 3 availability zones. That is for S3 standard. When coming to standard infrequently access, for long-lived, infrequently accessed data, you can just go and pick this standard infrequently access. And data is going to spread across greater than or equal to 3 availability zones. See, this is also same, long-lived, infrequently accessed only, but non-critical data, just because of your data is going to store in only 1 availability zone. If that availability zone goes down, your data will not be available. So less durability. Availability chances, durability chances are less, and minimum object size must be 128 KB. The maximum is 5 TB. Minimum, it depends on storage class. So then, clearly name only telling it's only one zone. Zone is nothing but availability zone. When coming to Glacier, archive with retrieval times ranged from minutes to hours. I'll show you how to retrieve the data also. And it stores greater than or equal to 3 availability zones. Glacier Deep Archive, the same. If ever needs to be accessed retrieval times in hours, here we can retrieve the data in minutes. If you need some data, you can retrieve within minutes, but here you can retrieve within hours, and price is less. So this is RRS, and it is saying not recommended, just because of durability value is very less for this. Durability value is just 99.99% only. For all remaining, it's 99.99. Okay. So that is a RRS. So we have a performance chart. We will look into that now. aws.amazon.com/s3, enter. So here you have an option storage class or features. You can go anywhere, and here storage classes. Where is that? Comparison storage classes. So here performance chart, go to performance chart. See here, for all these 11 nines, 11 nines, 11 nines, but not for RRS. RRS is not mentioned here. And these are the availability. S3 standard, 99.99% availability. Intelligent tiering, if you don't know what access pattern you require, you can simply select that. Infrequently access, 99.9 only. One zone, 99.5 only. Compared to this, it is less. Glacier, 99.99, Deep Archive, 99.99. But all remaining, durability is 99.99, except this RRS. Here, the value is 99.99% only. You must remember this. And data is going to spread across how many availability zones. See, except this one zone, remaining all spread across minimum of 3 availability zones. And all are object-based storages only. Retrieval, data will be available immediately, not applicable. And here per GB, you are going to get charged for that, how frequently you are accessing and all. And this is a minimum object storage. We'll talk about this. Durations when we discuss lifecycle management roles. So again, we can automatically transit object from one storage class to another storage class by using lifecycle management role. By using versioning, we can secure our data if you accidentally deletes. That's our next topics. Okay. So you have some time, you can just go here. You can observe this chart and you can even go and select individual storage classes, in what area you can, unknown access pattern, then you can, these are the key features, standard infrequently access key features. We already discussed about the key features, but if you want to go in detail, you can just use this article. So just give aws.amazon.com/s3. There you have storage classes, go there. When coming to pricing, here is an option pricing. So pricing always depends on 3 things. First one, storage per month. How much data you are storing per month. Second one, how many requests you are performing per month. How many put requests, how many get requests you are performing, how many post or patch, those all comes under put only. So how many put requests, how many get requests. Third thing, data transfer. So storage is nothing but storage class along with size. A month you are going to get charged. So if you are observing this, the lowest priced one is Glacier Deep Archive. On top of that, Glacier. On top of that, reduced redundancy storage, then one zone infrequently access, then standard infrequently access, then standard. This is the costliest. Amazon is going to continuously monitor our access pattern and they are going to applicable the pricing and all. So as they are monitoring continuously, the charge is high for intelligent tier. Then next to that S3 standard, as you are accessing on daily basis, you are going to. So then standard infrequently access, 40% less compared to standard infrequently access. One zone infrequently access is 40% less. So then Glacier and Glacier Deep Archive. So you can just go to this and you can select in what region. Select that. First 50 TB of the data, 25 cents per GB. So along with that, what is the storage class? It is a deep archive. This is what storage class, intelligent tiering, standard. This is what the pricing and all. That's the first thing. And second thing, data returned or data transfers. Basically, these are the requests. So again, if you really don't know all these things, or if you don't want to calculate manually, we have an option, calculator.aws. Calculator.aws. Earlier, we have simple monthly calculator. That is going to stop support in couple of days. So Amazon is replacing that with AWS pricing calculator. So here, create estimate, select the service. Okay, where is S3? Add a service. Seems it is in preview state. Okay, so as it is in preview state, it is not yet available, but you can use simple monthly calculator. Why? Because it is showing only 29 services, but we have approximately 90 services. So go to this calculator.s3.amazonaws.com/index.html, select Amazon S3. Now, standard storage, intelligent tiering, infrequently accessed, one zone infrequently accessed, Glacier, deep archive. And if you observe all this, first thing, how much storage? Second thing, how many put and get requests? Third thing, how much data is transferring? So you can mention these all values and you can get the price here. For example, we are going to have 100 GB and per month I'm going to perform 5,000 put request and 20,000 get request. Then this is what cost is going to be for S3. And how much data transfers out? Data returned by, let's assume 100 GB. And here let's assume 100 GB data is going to transfer or scanned. Then this is what the cost. Now, again, don't worry about that. We will go in detail about that simple calculator in coming sessions. But you can use that for any service. When coming to free tier, S3 comes under free tier. We are going to get 5 GB standard storage. I have not explained this before starting the session, just because of only S3 standard will comes under free tier eligibility. Infrequently access or one zone infrequently access will not comes under free tier eligibility. Intelligent tiering also will not comes under free tier eligibility. Okay. So then you can perform 2,000 put requests and 20,000 get requests under free tier limitation. Again, you can continuously monitor this. Simply go to my billing dashboard. And here you can find the top free tier services by usage. You can find S3 here. And here it will tell you, okay, how much you already consumed out of the available ones. How much you already consumed out of the available ones. And a quick explanation about that limit. So, you always keep an eye on this free tier services by usage. And these values are going to reset on every month first. So, you can, for coming 15 days, you can perform 2,000 put request and 20,000 get request, and you can use with 5 GB data, 5 GB data. So you can just keep an eye here. Okay. So, but whatever the one discussed. So what are the lab you are going to perform? Just practice with simple text files, PDFs and images. Don't take video files or 1 GB or 2 GB files, and don't use this platform to store movies or share movies. Okay, so data transfer will cost you. Don't, so it all depends. So don't use for that purpose, just practice with simple PDFs, images, audio files, or simple video files. You can practice. And if it is an image and notepad, it opens within browser. Why? Because that is a browser feature. If it is an audio file, if it is a video file, it is going to download automatically. If you click on open also, it downloads in your local machine, then you can view that. Okay. So this is the basic introduction. We have, for example, if you are talking about delete, if you want to get your object back, you can use this feature. If you want to enable logging, you can use this feature. If you want to use this for static website hosting feature. We have service called CloudTrail, right? If you want to store all CloudTrail logs into one bucket, this feature. Encryption, we have a session on that. We will discuss that in our coming 2 sessions. You can encrypt all data. Object log, you can secure couple of data. If you really don't want to give an option to delete this bucket even for root user also, yes, you can use this feature. Tags for easy understanding purpose. Transfer acceleration, just to reduce the latencies. If your customers across the globe, but this bucket is in Mumbai, then you can enable this feature. Events, you can get notifications, you can trigger a Lambda function, you can trigger an SQS. So at moment I'll show with the notifications. Requester pays, instead of bucket owner who is requesting the data, he will get charged for that request. Block public access we discussed now. ACLs, the same level of permissions, but you can share with another AWS account and all. Bucket policies, we will discuss that. CORS, not a big option. Lifecycle, how you can transit data from one storage class to another storage class automatically. We will discuss here. Replication, you have some data in Mumbai region, and for backup purpose, you want to replicate all data to another region bucket, cross region replication, or you want to maintain same copy in same region replication. Analytics, storage class analytics. So you have an object in S3 standard, but you are not accessing from last 60 days or 90 days. This gives report. Why don't you consider to move that to infrequently access? You can save some money and all. So you can get storage analytics. Metrics, it gives graphs. Inventory, you can get a report. So these all features we are going to discuss in our coming sessions. Okay. So any questions for me, guys? So if you have some time, quickly we'll discuss a couple of questions related to storage classes. Where is that? Okay. Okay. Can't I upload any file which is lesser than 128 KB? You can upload, but see, whenever you upload any object, by default take S3 standard as a storage class. Directly you cannot make an object with one zone infrequently access or Glacier. So first it is going to upload as a S3 standard, but if you want to transit to infrequently access, the size must be 128 KB. That is a minimum. If that is less than 128 KB, that will be in S3 standard only, but it will be uploaded to S3 platform. S3 with FileNet. FileNet, I'm not sure about that, Vijay. So I've never come across that FileNet. What is that? FileNet Enterprise Content Management. Content management, business processing management. Yes, you can. So until unless I completely know about that, I cannot. I don't comment on that, but I'll definitely look into that, Vijay. Okay. Yeah. Questions, right? Okay. So, can you answer to this question? I'm not getting some time to make this bit better. Okay, insurance company stores all document related to annual policy for duration of the policy. Documents are created once and stored until they are required, typically at the end of the policy. The document must be capable of retrieved immediately. Now they are moving to AWS Cloud. So which one you are going to choose? So B, Avinash. You are also Avinash? Okay, my name is also Avinash. B, and I got D as an answer. D, no Vijay. So B is the right answer here. So just because of document is going to generate only once, fine. And typically they are going to access only once at end of the policy. So yearly once. But his requirement is document should be available immediately. If you don't have this option, which one you are going to choose? Let's assume this is not available. A document must be capable of being retrieved immediately. So instead of that, he mentioned the retrieval duration. If we have 30 minutes retrieval duration. Which one you are going to choose? Glacier. So we have a couple of hours to retrieve the data. Glacier Deep Archive. So access is always important. Access pattern whenever you are selecting the storage class. So let's pick the another one. Not covered, not yet covered. Okay. Company is processing 10 TB of raw data to generate queries report. Although it is unlikely to be used again, the raw data need to be preserved for compliance and auditing purpose. Sure. Come on. So you guys are seeing that online users answers, but you're not giving any answers. Classroom users. D? Sure. Okay. Just because of he's saying unlikely to be used again. First thing, he's not going to use again, and he's not mentioning any access patterns, but he's mentioning most cost-effective way. So total 3 we can. So you can go with a Glacier. And we'll discuss this. These are related to encryption. Encryption also obviously important. So a photo sharing website running on AWS allow users to generate thumbnail image of photos stored in S3, and Amazon DynamoDB table maintains the location of photos, and thumbnails are easily recreated from the originals if they are accidentally deleted. Forget about cross-region replication. We have not yet discussed that. Skip that as put that aside and try to answer this. Generally, as it is a reproducible data, which one you need to choose? RRS. You need to choose RRS, reduced latency storage. For easily reproducible data or non-mission critical data, for logs, such type of logs, thumbnails, you can use RRS. But that option is not available here. So again, he's again looking for lowest cost. So what is the lowest cost here? See, as it is a thumbnails, logs. So thumbnail should be available immediately. You know the importance of thumbnails? When you visit youtube.com, it is going to load tens of or hundreds of videos, right? So every video size is going to be GBs, MBs. So when you open that page, is all the videos are going to load at backend? Is all videos loaded? No, it just shows the thumbnail. When you click on that thumbnail, then only video is going to be processed. So thumbnails should be available immediately. So you cannot use Glacier. Glacier is the cheapest, I agree. But in this case, we cannot use that. So then Amazon S3, there is no storage class like S3. S3 standard is there, so that is not a valid option. So then Amazon S3 with cross region replication. Again, S3 is not a storage class. S3 standard is a storage class. Remember that. So one option, Amazon S3 standard infrequently access. Only one is valid there. So but if you have RRS, you must select RRS there as it is a logs and thumbnails. So just to test you, he will give in that manner. Okay, some questions related to another topics, but on S3 only. So we'll discuss those in our next session. So again, so you can download this object to your local machine. This is what the URL for all our IAM. And I already pasted in our chat box. So you can just click on that. Missing IAM. Oh. We have. Even what are the things we discussed? I even added that one also, including tasks and everything. Okay. So you can just make sure you save that into your local machine, guys. Let's see, is it works without region code? Sometimes it is working, sometimes it is not working. So you can even give without region code also if you want, but make sure you give or follow the standard URL syntax. The bucket name is batch66, object name is aws730.txt. And once I got a confirmation, I'll share that soft copy, material soft copy. Probably by tomorrow or day after tomorrow, I'll share that. Okay. All right. So